Today on my channel, Planner and Faith Friends, we're going to go over my Bible study. I'm a little behind in sharing these with you, so I'm actually going to show you February, and then sooner I'll show you what I did in March as well. But I wanted to get caught up at least a little bit. This is my current study. I'm using this book, The Love Stories of the Bible Speak. I had to stop a moment and go back through February to share it with you. It's a lot. So we're going to talk a bit today, and then at the end, I'm going to share this week's Lenten devotional verses with you. So why don't you join me, friends, for some faith and creativity? Please stay tuned. Hello, Planner and Faith friends. Welcome to my channel. I'm One Crafty Dolo. Today, we're going to go through my faith study, as I said in the intro, for February. I'm behind. As I was planning out my videos, I realized I was thinking about what to say for March, which was Adam and Eve, and then I'm like, wait a minute. I never discussed Samson and Delilah. So we're going to get into that. On Sundays, on my channel, it's always about Jesus, faith studies, prayer journaling, Bible journaling, creative faith, and I always have a good mug of tea. Today it's British Blend by Tetley in a very pretty spring mug I pick most of my mugs up now at Home Goods, FYI. They're inexpensive and they're cute. Okay, so this is a Happy Notes cover. And what I did is, because Happy Planner changed their layout for the horizontal planners, I went ahead when the new ones for the 2025 season came out in the fall. I went ahead and bought an 18-month planner and just kind of took out half the inserts, and I'm using that. I got it at a good discount, and this is the old layout. Do I really care deeply about the new layout? Not particularly. I mean, I don't hate it the way some people do. To be honest with you, in my mini, I just ignore it, because what it is you have like checklists here. I just ignore it. They're not so bright that anyway. This was January. Incidentally, this isn't filled in because it was a double. They had that in last year's study, so I didn't. So let me get to February anyway. And yeah, this was January. So I sat down and I reread not only parts of the chapter, but I reread what I wrote for February, because it's been a hot minute, if you will. So, and I also wanted to refresh myself. So a word on my deco before I begin. Since it was February and Valentine's Day, what I did is I used some inks, but I used the shades of pink that I had. So this is a very soft tattered rose just in the corners. This is Kitsch Flamingo. These are Distress Oxide inks, by the way. So this is Kitsch Flamingo. This one is Picked Raspberry, which is quite bright, as you can see. And this one is Mulberry, and it's a Ranger ink pad that I picked up from Hobby Lobby. Then what I did is, if I recall correctly, I did the same thing in March. I sat down and decorated in one fell swoop. Then as each week went by, I would write in it. These stickers are from an old recollection sticker book that's been sitting around for at least 4 years. I don't know if you remember when Michael's, all of a sudden they had like an explosion of recollections, spiral planners, and all kinds of stickers, and then they were gone, and that kind of made me sad, because these stickers are great and inexpensive. The washi is just stuff I had on hand. I believe it's all from Simple Stories, but you can see here the combination. I kept it simple. To be honest with you, this year I'm keeping it a little more simple in here because I have the other Creative Faith journals. I mean, it's still creative, but I'm not putting in puffy embellishments and so forth. So that's a brief word on deco. There was a theme here, so that was my theme. And if you notice, and I'll show you, well, I won't show you March today, but I do this. I have a theme. So last month it was stencils and paper, some washi. I try to decorate every single month in a very similar way. That's just me. Okay, enough of that. I brought you in a little closer. So let's talk about Samson and Delilah. This is the most I've ever studied this story. I knew the outline of it, but I certainly have never gotten so far into depth in it. And it's quite the story, I have to say. So the first week, I talk about what happens before Samson is born. And basically what happens is an angel of God comes to his mother. Now, the author of the book makes a point that Sarah, Hannah, Elizabeth, well, here, I'll get into it. We're all infertile as well. So I quote the author, because what I do is I read the entire chapter. Let me just show you something real quick. Okay, so I read, that's where we are. I read the entire chapter, okay, and it's mercy and restoration. It's Judges 13:16. So let me put that out there. So she quotes the Bible, and then she talks about Samson a bit, and it's really about his parents in the beginning and his life. And then, of course, she brings in Delilah, and she extrapolates a lot of different things. I like her style of writing. I like the fact that she brings in some personal anecdotes. She applies it in a very different way from what I previously read, and I appreciate that. So this quote appears somewhere towards the end, and I think it says everything. Of all the love stories we examine in this book, Samson and Delilah's probably was the worst and most dysfunctional. And I was like, wow, this says a lot. And it does. Okay. So the angel, you get into Judges 13:3. The angel of the Lord appeared to the woman and said to her, behold, you are barren and have not borne children, but you shall conceive and bear a son. And the author says, as I was saying, Sarah, Hannah, and Elizabeth, Manoah's wife, they never give her a name. They mention his name, but not hers, which is curious. She struggled with infertility, and like them, she may have felt abandoned by God. I love those three women's stories. I found them very compelling when I read the women of the Bible speak. She didn't talk about Elizabeth as much, but certainly I know the story. But Sarah and Hannah, those two women, I didn't experience infertility, but they resonated with me. So the angel appears to her multiple times, okay? And again says to her, Judges 13:5, for behold, you shall conceive and bear a son. No razor shall come upon his head, for the child shall be a Nazarite to God from the womb, and he shall begin to save Israel from the hand of the Philistines. This is important because this comes back with Delilah. Now, I quote the author here because it's like, well, what is a Nazarene vow? What is a Nazarite vow? What does that mean? Because I don't fully understand it. And that's why I'm glad this is in here, because this is the part I knew a little bit, but not fully. So it just doesn't mean, a Nazarite vow doesn't just mean no haircuts. God also required them not to consume wine or strong drink or even grape juice or grapes. A Nazarite could also never touch a dead body. That comes back. Samson's mother didn't question anything of what she was told, which is pretty important, I think. What we see in this story is the faith of his parents exceeding his own. And yeah, okay. So she tells her husband, that a man of God appeared to me. She says, I did not, Judges 13:6, I did not ask him where he was from, and he did not tell me his name. And then it goes into 7. But he said to me, behold, you shall conceive and bear a son. So then drink no wine or strong drink, and eat nothing unclean, which would have meant unkosher. Understand that. the laws of what they call kashrut, being kosher, are in Deuteronomy. So being people of Israel, they would have observed those dietary laws. For the child shall be a Nazarite to God from the womb to God from the womb to the day of his death. Okay. And then in Judges 13:8, the Manoah prays and says, send the angel again and teach us, basically. And the angel again comes to the wife. She ran again to the husband to tell him. So what the author of the book is showing us here, she's showing how these two, this husband and wife, they have a good marriage. In other words, they have a very good marriage, and their faith in God is unshakable. And that's also important. So the angel appears again in Judges 13:21. If you hear noise, Zoe's over here getting into stuff. Sorry, Zoe. The angel of the Lord appeared no more to I'm sorry, I read this wrong. He did not appear anymore. Sorry, I got distracted. Zoe is just rumpling about. Okay. So, he appeared no more to Manoah and his wife. Then Manoah knew that he was the angel of the Lord. The woman bore a son, Judges 13:24. And she gave him the name Samson, and the young man grew, and the Lord blessed him. Okay. As the author says, Samson was going to be born into a home where there was trust and respect between his parents. Manoah and his wife were devoted to God's will and to each other. And I added in, Samson differed from his parents. Now, he's a chosen person, and yet his path isn't the same. He goes to Timnah and sees a woman, and he demands her to be his wife. And his parents are like, no, we don't like that, in Judges 14:4. His father and mother did not know that it was if it was from the Lord, for he was seeking an opportunity against the Philistines as they ruled over Israel. And so they're questioning. First, they're saying to him, does this sound familiar? How many parents have said this to their children? Can't you find a nice girl from around here, or a nice girl who, whatever, fills in whatever they think would be best for their child, right? You've heard this. I know you have. I've not done it, but I've heard it. Okay, so then they go with him to Timnah, and they come to the vineyards, and they come up toward a young lion comes towards them roaring. So now here I write, we start to see Samson breaking with his obligations of a Nazarite, selecting women, not believing in the God of Israel. Check. He shouldn't do that. He kills the lion. That's a whole story in here, but I only have so much room, right? Then he goes back and finds honey in the carcass, and then he eats it, and he gives it to his parents and doesn't tell them where it's from. Thus, he breaks the Nazarite law, don't touch a dead body. By the way, the lion was by a vineyard, and he gives it to them, not telling him it's from a dead animal, which violates the laws of keeping kosher. So what happens is he's ignoring his parents, and then this wife, let me find it, here we go. Okay. Samson's short-lived marriage to the Philistine woman ended in terrible tragedy. At his wedding feast, he gave a challenge to his Philistine guests, and it came with a hefty wage. So he offers this riddle and says, I'll give you 30 linen garments and 30 sets of clothes. If you can't tell me the answer, you must give me 30 linen garments and 30 sets of clothes. They accept the challenge, okay? And basically what happens is his wife sells him out. She was more concerned with her people, the Philistines, than she was him. And so she basically, sells him out. And he would have been better off staying silent, is what the author says. If there's anything else we learn about Samson, he just didn't know when to shut up, especially when a beautiful woman was involved. Okay, so they were the three days the men were stumped. The fourth day they went to Samson's new wife with their frustrations. They demanded she get an answer, or, quote, we will burn you and your father's household to death. So When I say she sells him out, I mean, it's a terrible spot to be in. Truthfully, she could have told her husband the truth and he would have gotten them off to safety, one would think, especially because he's got so much strength. So she tries and tries to get the solution. Then she resorts to crying for 3 days and, or 7 days. She cried for 7 days straight. He caved, told her. She told the Philistines. They returned to Samson with the answer, and then things went off the rails, okay? So what ends up happening, long story short, he struck down 30 of their men, stripped them of everything, gave their clothes to those who explained the riddle. He returned to his father's home, right? And then when he goes back, he learns his wife was given to his best man. Alrighty. This is like a mess, okay? It's just a mess. All right. Then he goes back in Judges 15:3 to visit his wife, but her father says, "No, I gave her to your friend. She's not here. You can't have her. How about her younger sister, though?" And he's like, "No." So he says, "This time," quote, "this time I shall be innocent in regard to the Philistines when I do them harm." Judges 15:3. And so it's awful. There's this whole thing about him tying foxtails together, setting them fire. Long story short, excuse me, he sets fire to their grain stores, their vineyards, their olive groves. It's a swath of destruction is the way I phrased it. And when they learn it was him, what do? They end up burning the wife and the father anyway. So it seems to me that in this story, things kind of go from bad to worse. And the author says, whatever emotions he, Samson, was experiencing, he channeled it into rage. Okay? So you see a lot of hubris with him, not too much humility, if any at all these qualities, and yet God blessed his parents with him. They listened to God, but he can't get out of his own way. He then tells them he's going to avenge, he's going to, right? And it's, I will avenge on you, and after that I'll quit. Judges 15:7. So they come, they bind him up. He agreed to let his own people bind him up and take him over to his enemies. When he came, the Philistines came shouting to meet him. Then the Spirit of the Lord rushed upon him, and the ropes that were on his arms became as flax that has caught fire, and his bonds melted off his hands. So, listen, here's the thing. God had a purpose for him. Okay? Wait, did I? No, I didn't jump the shark here. I thought I was on the wrong page here. He strikes down 1,000 men. God provides him water when he needs it. And we find out he's judges Israel's in the days of the Philistines for 20 years. Quote, as the author says, Samson then led or judged the nation of Israel for 20 years. So this story goes from Judges 15:3, 7, 10, 14, 20. What I found fascinating here is that God didn't give up on him. Okay? He didn't listen, but God had a purpose for him. It's really quite something when you think about it, because he's abandoning this, he's not doing that. And then, of course, we go from bad to worse in some ways. And then he meets Delilah. He goes to Gaza, interestingly enough, which we know has been in the news. And he visits a prostitute. Then he meets Delilah, who's beautiful. Okay. And it says for the first time, he's in love. Okay. Well, the Philistines instruct her in Judges 16:5, quote, seduce him and see where his great strength lies, and by what means we may have to overpower him, that we may bind him to humble him. Remember what I said about humility? And we will each give you 1,100 pieces of silver. Oh, I errored there. I should wait that out. That's a huge sum. Okay, at that time especially, and to give it to a woman, as the author points out. So then she says to him, please tell me where your great strength lies and how you might be bound, that one can subdue you. She asks him the same question 3 times, and each time he gives her a fake answer. And then she's like, "Look, the Philistines are coming." And then he gets out of whatever he was in. It's more complicated than what I'm saying. The point being is part of him may be onto her. What's the saying? Once burned, twice shy. I don't know, but he's so impetuous. Again, he takes a woman who's not of his tribe, right? So finally, she kind of confronts him because she's getting frustrated. She wants her shekels or her silver or whatever they are. She wants the money. Okay, show me the money, right? By the time we get to Judges 15:16, she says to him, "How can you say I love you when your heart is not with me?" His soul was vexed to death. That's quite curious there. So finally he opens his heart and he says, "A razor has never come upon my head, for I have been a Nazarite to God from my mother's womb. If my head is shaved, then my strength will leave me." And it continues, I will have no more power basically than ordinary men, 16:17 in Judges. She sells him out for the money. The other one I put sells out, but really it was about, her life. I don't know. So she says, Judges 16:19, she made him sleep on her knees, and she called a man and had him shave off the 7 locks off his head. She torments him because his strength is gone. So not only does she sell him out, she turns around and torments him with the fact that, see, you're nothing. Now, that's a lot to take in, isn't it? It's a lot. Hold on, let me get in here a bit. Yeah. Why didn't Samson end things with Delilah after the first betrayal? Remember, she asked him 3 separate times, the second, the third. Those are the kind of questions you may have asked someone you love who's in an unhealthy or abusive relationship. It's interesting how she sees this as the most dysfunctional, abusive relationship out of all that she's covering, right? You may be reading Samson's story and shouting, "Get up, walk out the door, leave Delilah, and don't look back." Her actions prove she didn't love Samson, and clearly didn't have his best interests at heart. And so it's interesting, and she says, and I like this point, sometimes it can be difficult for us to recognize when the usual gender dynamics are reversed. But there is no question that Samson was in a manipulative and abusive relationship. Whew. Women can be manipulative and abusive, and that is something that isn't really discussed much in our culture even today, right? It's amazing. And then what the author extrapolates, and I think this is a good point, okay? We can quickly discover just how weak and helpless we are without God's favor and mercy. Oof. So they capture him, gouge his eyes out, and take him prisoner. Oof, right? It's awful. Okay. Now, they use him for entertainment, and the author refers to it as like a freak show. Like, they bring him out and without his eyes and they make him do things. And eventually he gets one of the people, he's like, "Put me between the 2 pillars." And he says to God, "Let me die with the Philistines." And he crashes the pillars down. He kills more Philistines than he ever had in his life. And he's dead too. And his family comes and retrieves his body for burial. Why the change? Why did God, in the end, do that? I think he saw the humility. He saw the humility that Samson came to let's try this in English. He saw the humility that Samson found in himself and brought it to God. And at first I was kind of critical of myself, which I'm not usually, but I was like, I can't believe I haven't shown you this. It's, we're in April here. And then I had a thought, okay? I'm about to show you my Lenten study. And this week, as we go into Palm Sunday, when Jesus enters Jerusalem, there's a lot of humility in how Jesus comes in on a donkey. He's not trumpeted, he's not heralded. It's very simple. And he comes in knowing the torment and the suffering and that he will die. And yet he still goes and he still walks with God in humility. And so when I sat here and reread some of this to remind myself, I remembered it, but not fully, not enough to talk. So I did go back through it. And I thought, well, gee, maybe there are no accidents. The fact that I'm sharing this with you today, there may very well be a darn good reason for that. And maybe that's what I was meant to do today. So in March, I go through Adam and Eve. I promise I'll get that done sooner than I did this one. But yeah, that's what I did in February. And I've learned a lot. Her books are fabulous, and I really highly recommend them. So now I'm going to grab the pages that I use for my Lenten study, and I'm going to share them with you as well. Okay, so this is my Creative Faith Journal, and I created a section back here for Lent. So I was digging through and I got pink ink all over me. One of my pens must have run. I don't know. Alrighty, so now week 6, and I had titled this Humility Without Fears. So for this week, I talked to you about my Nana and being nervous and about humility and things of that nature. And the verses I shared with you and I'll share today are from Matthew, my favorite gospel, Matthew 21. And basically, Palm Sunday will be upon us, and it's Jesus coming into Jerusalem. So 21 for Matthew says, this took place to fulfill what was spoken by the prophets, saying, and then we go to 5, say to the daughter of Zion, behold, your king is coming to you humble and mounted on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a beast of burden. And I skipped down to 10. And when he entered Jerusalem, the whole city was stirred up. And there, I didn't add in how much they were saying Hosanna, calling to him, the Son of David. It was really an amazing, amazing scene. And yet he's there on a donkey, right? And the chapter ends, Matthew 21:11, and the crowd said, this is the prophet Jesus from Nazareth of Galilee. So the Bible study that I wrote out for myself, and I added in for you to reflect on, was about how Jesus comes in with humility, not in a grand carriage, drawn by soldiers, not trumpets blaring. What does this teach and show us? In fact, he does the opposite. He enters Jerusalem humbly, setting each of us an example and a lesson. People greet him with exclamations of joy. They herald him, but he stays on the donkey, not giving in to ego, etc. This is incredibly powerful. Yeah, I mean, a person would be like, oh, I'm the Son of God, but not him. And that's really pivotal, I think, to this chapter here, to these verses, to our understanding of what happens during Holy Week. They give him recognition. They call him a prophet, and yet he remains who he is without hubris. Well, friends, I think at one point we all behave with a bit of hubris, and then life has a way of chopping us down and humbling us, which I come to you each week in humility. I'm just scrubbing along here. I am not a theologian. I'm just a woman who's in her 4th full year of deep, deep Bible study. But as always, my goal is to lift you, whether it's in the books I'm reading, my prayer journal, these devotionals. These devotionals mean so much to me. I can't thank you enough for being on this journey with me. Really, it just means everything. And thank you for helping me to grow. And again, I hope I'm inspiring you. So, all right, friends, this is going to air tomorrow, and then Holy Week is going to begin, and it's the most amazing time for those of us who are Christians. We go through the deepest sorrow, we go through a waiting period, and then God reveals his glory and his promises. So until next week, I am here with you. I am praying for you. If I can send you extra prayers, drop them in the comments below. And thank you. Thank you so much, because your comments, you being here, you helping me to create this community. Goodness, I can't even begin to tell you how much you matter to me. Incidentally, these are all puffy, so I'm going to have to take some of these out. But you know what? Maybe that's what we'll do soon. All right, friends, Planner of Faith friends, thank you again for the gift of your presence. And please know one last thing: God sees you. God created you to be exactly who you are, and he sees you. And for that alone, we deserve to go to him, and we should go to him in humility and being thankful. Have a blessed Holy Week, Planner friends. You're in my hearts. Bye now.